the Dr. Deborah Show, and this is the show where we talk about bringing peace and calm into your life. And later in the show, we'll be talking about mental health stigma. We're live at KCSB FM Santa Barbara 91.9. KCSB is a platform for cultural expression and thoughtful discussion, providing a diverse educational forum. And I'm a Santa Barbara-based clinical psychologist, and I specialize in pediatric neuropsychology. And during my clinical training and my current work, I've treated thousands of people, and I want to share my experiences with you. I'm also a UCSB alumni, and I live locally in Santa Barbara. And this show's all about our community and how to create compassionate conversations about our well-being and health. Again, I want to welcome our listeners to the Dr. Deborah Show. It's wonderful to have you with us. I just want to remind you that the show is psychoeducational, and it's in the area of neuropsychology and well-being, but it's not meant to replace professional mental health advice or therapy. So if you do believe you suffer from a particular disorder, please do reach out for professional help. And today on the show, we're going to be talking about mental health and well-being with a focus on life changes and business success with our very special guest, Nicole Black. Nicole is a motivational speaker, entrepreneur, and small business trainer in employee productivity and effective growth. And for the past 20 years, she's been part of helping some of the biggest brands in hospitality and entertainment grow sustainably through the development of their people. From the Ritz-Carlton to 20th Century Fox to our local Renaud's Bakery and Bistro. And she's the co-founder and former CEO of Renaud's. Is it Renaud's or Renaud's? Probably Renaud's. I'm always pronouncing it incorrectly, which is a really yummy French bakery and bistro, and they now have 6 locations throughout Southern California. And Nicole served as CEO during one of the most difficult economic eras in the world and was able to launch her first store in 2008. And she learned a lot through those struggling years, and her vision is that more new businesses succeed. When everyone succeeds, confidence soars and our economy flourishes. And now Nicole is a motivational speaker and trainer with a resilient spirit and passion for helping organizations and individuals reframe and refocus their business to increase productivity and performance. She's a native of Southern California and currently resides in Santa Barbara with her daughter. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Thanks, Dr. Deborah.
I'm very excited to have Nicole, and I've known Nicole for a long time because I always love eating her yummy croissants, but also I've always liked her as a person, so I'm really glad that she's here to share her wisdom. And coming up on the show, we're going to talk about mental health stigma, and then we'll talk about mental health and life changes and business success, and then prevention awareness through life changes and business success. And we're talking about mental health stigma today, just as a reminder, because mental health is the largest public health priority and the largest financial burden that's of any health issue in the world, according to the World Health Organization and the World Economic Forum. And also in a report from the Centers for Disease Control called Attitudes Toward Mental Illness, they found that stigma and embarrassment are 2 of the top reasons why people with mental health issues do not seek help or medication. I also just like to start the show by reminding people that issues surrounding mental health affect all of us. None of us are really immune from any kind of mental health, and I like the newest way people are talking about mental health is that it's kind of like you could get like a flu or a virus or a cold, maybe one day you feel like you have a little flu, emotional flu. So that's one way of looking at it. And to start, I like to talk about what is mental health. I just describe it very simply that it's a physiological balance, meaning our nervous system, our heart, our thoughts are kind of all at a calm place, and that gives us a sense of inner peace. I was wondering, Nicole, how do you think you would describe mental health?
I think you actually did an excellent job of describing what mental health is. I think most of us, I love that you bring up the stigmatism about mental health because people hear psychiatrist and they think crazy.
Right.
And that's just not what it is, right?
Right.
If you had a cold, would you go see your general doctor?
Right.
Absolutely.
Or if you had a blood issue, you'd go see a hematologist, go see a specialist for whatever you've got going on.
Right. So why is it so, for lack of a better word, why is it so crazy to most of us that we could go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist or somebody who's not us, who can just listen. Because that's basically what they're doing, right? And everybody at one time or another feels like they're going crazy. Things start falling apart. What do you do?
There's a great book I love by Mark Epstein. He's this psychiatrist from Harvard, and he has a book. It's called Falling to Pieces Without Falling Apart. I just like the title of it because it's true. You know, like you said, you feel like you're falling apart. And also, I think that people, fortunately, seem to be moving more in the direction of acceptance that maybe they can go get mental health, especially like, and I noticed in fashion magazines and stuff, it's become more hip to go get help. So people seem to be making it into the office to get more help.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. Hip to get help. I like that.
And thank you for your support, right? Because, I mean, even though I know you work around the food business or companies, I think that it just intersects all of our lives because we're around other people, right? And everybody has stuff going on. And so
I work with people. And I think what I notice, and I travel a lot, that's my outlet, that's my fun thing. And what I really notice a lot about people is that people need other people to talk to. Not because they want to be told what to do, right? But just sometimes it's nice to have somebody else listen to you.
That's the truth. No, I mean, even if you have someone who's suicidal, I mean, it's not everything. I don't know what I would say to someone if they were suicidal. Well, you just could listen. Actually, just having somebody there to listen. You could even tell the person you might not have the right words to say, but, being there, just letting them know you care is what you're saying, I think.
I think everybody needs, I have moved away from, well, if it was me, this is what I would do, and more to just allowing people to, if you allow someone to talk long enough, they can actually solve their own problem. But you just have to be patient, and you have to sit there, and you have to listen, and most of us aren't patient enough to do that anymore.
That's true, and part of therapy that I tell people is, people are always surprised, but I'll say, well, I'm feeding back to you what you've just described to me. I might add on to it, or I might, give you a suggestion or an idea that we could collaborate on off of that. But it's predominantly, mostly based on your experience and just being able to hear yourself, because sometimes we can't hear ourselves.
Absolutely.
So you kind of feel like mental health is really important because you deal with a lot of people. And also you're saying just the ability to kind of listen and be caring and
I think that we're in a really stressful time of world. World times are stressful. The stock market, I mean, just put it in terms of the stock market, right? One day it's red, one day it's green.
And I don't watch the stock. Do you watch the stock market?
Not a lot.
Because you're a business lady. Yeah, I don't know anything about the stock market, actually.
But, it's, and I don't know much about politics. That I will be completely honest with you on. But I know that a lot of other people care about it, and that's why.
Right.
I don't pay a lot of attention to it, but those things are all stressful. Relationships, they're incredibly stressful.
It's true.
Like you're married, I'm single. So I don't have to deal with another person's, issues and stuff coming into my life.
Well, you have a daughter.
But she's amazing.
Yeah, kids are much more, I know, they're very automatically healing-ish. That's true. Well, when you have a partner, it adds another person. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Absolutely. I think that, and so for me, not having to deal with that, I only have to deal with myself.
Which is probably nice.
It's nice once you get used to it. It's lonely, or you feel like this loneliness, and then it becomes more of like no, I'm good.
You're like, actually, this is comfortable.
Well, you watch other people's relationships, and you're like, no, thank you. I won't have what she's having.
Yeah, relationships are complicated.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that tends to lead to a lot of mental issues because people, knowingly or unknowingly, they put their things onto other people.
They project out.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's I don't think it's a great thing because there are people who will take on other people's issues and make them their own. And, none of us, like for me, I don't have to fix anybody. I'm not God, and I'm just not strong enough to fix all these other people.
There's no way to fix anybody anyhow. I mean, when I tell people, too, when they come in and want to be fixed, is I let them know I can't fix them. But I could teach them to react or respond more skillfully.
I think that's it. I love that. Everything in life is about how you react.
Mm-hmm.
Something happens, like for me, I gave a TEDx talk.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably going to have to come down because of the title. Long story long. It's possibly trademarked, and so it'll have to come down.
Yeah.
I called my brother. I'm
Yeah.
crying. And he says, so what? And I said, well, but it has almost 100,000 views. And he said, so what? And I really had to sit there and like wrestle with it. And I was like, this was really important to me. And he said, you gave the talk, right? And I said, I did. And he said, then if it comes down, so what?
Well, we grab onto an idea.
Absolutely.
And then the more we grab onto that, even though everything's always in change. That's why I like Buddhism, because it's kind of about like moving and flux and change. And I mean, like Nicole and I were talking before the show, and if you're just jumping on, Nicole Black is here. We're talking about how life changes and business successes intersect with mental health. And we were talking about, okay, wait a minute, I just lost my train of thought because I'm getting older. We were talking before the show about illusions, and we were saying how a lot of things in life are illusions, right? And so I think this illusion, like you're talking about with your TED Talk, is that, you know, it probably in your mind you had some idea that it was going to equal something if you didn't, you know, if you didn't make the right move. And so I think that, how did you deal with that then in the end?
Well, it hasn't come down yet, but it will be, the title will have to be changed. But I realize that everything in life, no matter what happens to me, get run over by a car when I walk out of here, you know, meet Keanu Reeves walking in the parking lot, wishful thinking. You know, it's just how I react to it. That's the only thing that I can control. It's me. It's my reaction.
And even that we can't really control.
We can a little bit, though.
A little bit,
you know?
but not really. I mean, at least I had Alan Wallace on who a couple weeks ago, who is my teacher and who had lived with the Dalai Lama. And I like what he says, which is like if you sit in a room for 1 minute or something, that's totally empty. You can create your whole scene and there's nothing there, you know? Or if you try to think of something, one thing for 10 seconds, if you try it, see if you can do it, and see if you can control that just for 10 seconds to think of one thing. You know, because there's a lot of intersecting thoughts. So, but I do think we can kind of control a couple things, so to speak, like what we eat, maybe, or what we wear, you know, those kinds of things. They're very basic.
Or how we react to other people. You know, if someone says something to you that you don't like, or that you know, might take personally, or, you know, like your dog is ugly, you know. I mean, like that's something that I would take really personally. But how you react to it, you do have some control over that. It doesn't mean that you're going to react in an appropriate manner all the time, but, you know, and then you can always replay it in your mind. And if you know, owe an apology, apologize. It's not the end of the world.
Right. Well, the point is that I think what we're both saying is there's a lot of opportunity for change and growth. But it's sometimes I think we get really debilitated by fear too. You know, like, okay, if I don't do this, then this is going to happen. And we get ourselves convinced of certain things. So
I met somebody about a month ago, and he said, no, I'm not afraid of anything. And I said, afraid of nothing? Absolutely nothing. And now, like, when little fears come up, you know, like, oh, it's dark outside, and I have a fear of the dark. I think about that gentleman, and I think, no, I don't have any fear. It doesn't mean that my fear is gone. I'm still totally afraid of the dark. But I try to implant that into my brain. Yeah. I have no fear. Yeah. Because we really don't have anything to fear, you know?
That's very healthy. In fact, if we think of kind of the opposite, like if we're able to identify, okay, I'm thinking this, then maybe we could think about the opposite of that, and that can help us kind of shift our memory and our thought process. Actually, they've been finding really that gets embedded in our muscle memory as well. So maybe the way we would react by running or fleeing or freezing, that will be affected by our thoughts. So that is a powerful way of doing that you were able to listen to that.
I'm working on it.
Well, and I think fear, it's a constant process, you know, and I think fear is very biological for us. But it's also kind of the unevolved part of us where we get into this fight or flight mode. And really the fear part is really based in our brainstem, the hind part of our brain, where we're like caveman kind of thinking a lion is there that's going to chase us. But I mean, and I guess in the dark it might be something like that, but there probably won't be a lion there. But, you know, I guess there's the potential for anything.
Coyotes.
It's unknown. Yeah, there could be a coyote. So we're We're here exploring the relationship between mental health and life changes and business success. And I know it's been said, that the only thing constant in life is change. And I think people change, circumstances change, right? Things are changing all the time, like we were just talking about, and the change can be small or big or subtle or sudden. And sometimes it's a breeze and sometimes it's a really painful process. But I think change can be a choice that we make, and but also can be imposed on us, right? We might not have a choice. Like a new job, getting married, starting a family, moving houses are some of the examples of like our life changes that we might experience, although there's so many. And I think some people view change as like a positive challenge, but most people I think do fret or get, agonize over the consequences of like new situations. And so few of us, I think there's more of us learning to deal with change without feeling unruffled. And I think it's okay to feel unruffled, right? When we have life changes.
I think it's quite normal.
Exactly. How could we not feel unruffled or unsure or uncertain?
And it's okay to feel those things, right?
Exactly.
But it's better to sit in it, feel it, and go, oh, this is what that feels like.
As long as you have, I think the new thing that people are talking about too is like, oh, I'm facing my issues and I'm letting them go. But that's a big statement, to face our issue. If something comes up, like you said, and then we have to look at it, and that can be really uncomfortable. And so,
releasing your fear, absolutely.
Yeah, because you mentioned sitting with it. Do you have any recommendations for people listening about how you sit with? Because everybody does it a little different, but I think maybe there's someone who can relate with your idea.
Well, candidly, I'm a classic runaway. So I tend to, in the past, I've always run away from my problems, or, I moved a lot. So now I've lived in the same house for 5.5 years. So that's the longest stint I've gone since I was a kid.
So you're trying to stay in one place is kind of what you're saying?
I'm trying to just sit and be present.
Mm-hmm,
and
nice.
I think that's what's so challenging, is that we're in conversations with people, and rather than just being in the conversation, a lot of times we're thinking about what we're going to say next, or
right,
what am I going to make for dinner? Or
we're very fragmented. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so just actually sitting and being present with someone and being present with myself, that is making all the difference for me. Meditation, I know it's like, oh, everybody's banging that gong.
Meditation's big.
But it can be done in a multitude of different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't always listen to a guided meditation. Sometimes I throw on a classical music CD and I just sit. And I, a minute in, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get up now. And I'm like, okay, obviously I need to sit here a little longer.
The way I was trained with meditation, I know everyone likes the music and the apps and all that, is to really, I've created one that's very brief that I've taught. I used to go in the schools and teach, and I teach everybody I see, which is kind of a mixture of everything that I've been taught. And it's very brief, but I think it's really essential to learn how to do some of that on our own. Now, I know everybody's into breathing. That's like one thing, if you're like, oh, I just take some breaths. Well, and then also there's kind of 6 steps to my little mini meditation. If anybody wants it, I can give it to them. You can contact me. And if Nicole wants it, I could teach her. But the idea is really to ground yourself, notice your connection to the earth, because I kind of feel like we're 3 feet above the ground,
Absolutely.
Running around, just to notice our connection, like the dirt and the rocks and the lava core and gravity. And if you're sitting in a chair or laying in bed or you're walking, to notice your connection to that. And then to take in 3 breaths, because the Buddhists are very into 3s. And then if you can, you go in through your nose and notice the air coming in and then the air coming out, and try to watch that dissolve. And, because that cleans your blood too. And then I have a part where you put your hand on your heart, just feel your heart vibration. Half of it's kind of coming back to ourselves again, keep coming back to ourselves and become loyal to ourselves. And then my friend Donjo Sokan, who's a Japanese nature monk in Japan, he comes here every year. They get up and they actually thank their heart for keeping them alive. So then we say that to ourselves, like, thank you for keeping me alive. Then I think of something beautiful that we love about the earth, that's nature. It can be really simple, but if you run through it, it can be very efficient. And then I have a mantra, which is just, I'm a loving and beautiful person. And I repeat that 3 times or however long. And then I might say something I appreciate about myself that can be simple. And then just being thankful for the moment, And so you could do that. If you get good at that, you can do it in 30 seconds. And I think then you could do the music and the apps and all that with it. But then you become more self-reliant.
Well, every morning when I get up, I write in my gratitude journal, I am so grateful. And there are moments where I'm like, I'm just grateful. I don't have a specific thing, or if I'm going to visit a good friend of mine that I haven't seen in a while. I'm so grateful for my deep connection, friendships that have lasted many, many years.
Gratitude is key too. Yeah, they found if you write 5 things down every day for a month, you can really shift your mindset. Well, and it's kind of like the idea what your friend that you bumped into said is he didn't have any fear.
Yeah.
He didn't have any fear because he's probably thinking about like really basic kind of things maybe, like you might be thankful for walking or seeing or hearing or, you know what I mean? Sometimes distilling that down to the basics too.
I think it's important, the thing that you said about breath, that's the number one thing we need to sustain life.
Yep.
It's breath.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we don't breathe, we don't
live.
Exactly. Well, and also anxiety is a big thing that's going on right now. And I think with anxiety, we hold our breath. So I think that's really important to practice the breath.
Absolutely.
And notice if we're holding our breath. So we're giving you our little tidbits. I do like to just briefly talk about like what is mental health stigma, because I know it's a funny word. And I know over time the meaning of the word stigma has changed. Actually, I feel like we need an anti-stigma almost. But it's basically like stereotypes or negative views that are pointed at a person or a group of people. And there's kind of 2 stigmas I broke down. There's self-stigma and social stigma. And social stigma is when we have attitudes and discriminating behavior that are directed towards individuals with mental health problems as a result of a label they may have been given. And then there's self-stigma, which I think is very common, where we internalize, the mental health sufferer internalizes their perception of discrimination. So like maybe if somebody comes in and they said, oh, I never wanted to play tennis with those women because they're always depressed. And then that woman becomes depressed herself. That can be problematic, actually, right? Because then the person thinks I'm not allowed to be depressed because I'm like one of those people, So stigma is real. And then I think when we watch TV shows and media, that's why I'm doing this media piece to try to see if we can change the way the media, how we are out on our, I don't know, do you watch TV or shows?
I love TV.
Right, we do. People love it. It's like, you know what I mean? It's such a part of our lives. The thing is, I feel like then we internalize those ideas that we watch too. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
So, I was wondering, Nicole, do you think from your experience, how do you think mental health and like life changes or business success intersect?
Oh, mental health and business intersect. Well, I think that for the most part, you knew me when I had very first opened that bakery.
That's
and I think in the very beginning, I spent a lot of time beating myself up for not having things exactly the way that I thought that they should be. And the truth is that everything works out exactly the way that it's supposed to. So this whole, like, the self-stigma that you were talking about, if we can let go of that and just allow things to happen. I mean, I'm not just saying, sit back and meditate and close your eyes and then everything's going to be peachy keen, because that's also not true. But I think that if you can, like, remove the, I could have done it better. It doesn't matter if you could have done it better. You did it the way you did it. You need to move on, and whatever you learn from it, now, okay, next time I know how to handle this situation differently.
So you're saying to take care of your mental health as a business person, to learn from your experiences that you've had instead of being critical, right?
Well, forgive yourself.
Forgive yourself.
I mean, we're still human.
Right. Well, there is that idea. I had this kind of epiphany a couple months ago about even parenting or like Martha Stewart. I mean, we all want to have our houses a certain way and our kids a certain way. And there's this whole notion that generationally has been passed down from my parents to me. And then I'm not passing that down to my son. But I know the idea of perfectionism, right? And
Absolutely.
There is no such thing as perfectionism. And actually, I love that everybody's so varied because we all have something really beautiful to contribute, right?
Well, and Martha Stewart had her own issues too, right? Like, she's not perfect. Nobody, that's what I think is so beautiful, is like no one's perfect. And there's no one size fits all.
Exactly. Well, nature, I feel like, is perfect. Like a flower is perfect. But I mean, as people, we don't need to be perfect because that's like, I don't know. It seems like an ideal that's like unattainable too.
Completely unattainable. I'd rather have my flaws.
Well, I do think your bakery is actually pretty perfect. I do. I mean, well, you have the decor and, the food is very high quality and it's, you have a certain ambiance that you've created.
I'm biased, so I absolutely think it's the best bakery in Santa Barbara. I
Yeah.
have had croissants all over the world, and I still
They are
think
good.
ours are the best.
They are really. I have
So-
too. Wow, those are special. Those almond croissants, especially when those come out of the oven, they're like dangerous. So if you haven't been there, go check it out at Renaud's. Is that? Did I say it right? Is it Renaud's?
Renaud's.
Renaud's.
It rhymes with
Renaud. Perfect.
Exactly.
I got it. See, I'm a fast learner. Well, and I think that there's a lot of research that's coming out now with businesses and mental health and entrepreneurs. And there's this guy named Dr. Michael Freeman, who's a psychiatrist who specializes in working with business and entrepreneurs. This was just something I researched and found. He found that 49% of the 242 entrepreneurs that he interviewed had one or more lifetime mental health conditions. But I mean, the reality is like everybody has stuff going on, right? So it's going to happen. And that entrepreneurs are more likely to report a lifetime of depression, ADD, ADHD, bipolar is like 12%, and substance use, which of course those percentages change all the time. But it's just a general idea that, I mean, people have stuff going on is the main point. And maybe they don't talk about it too. That's why I was thinking.
There's depression's a huge thing, right? Situational depression is very different than like manic depression, right? Manic is you're the psychologist, not me.
Bipolar, yeah.
Right. So bipolar, that's the extreme highs and extreme lows. I have absolutely in my lifetime suffered from a ton of situational depression. Both of my parents have passed away. Anytime something doesn't go according to the plan, according to Nicole,
Yes.
there's a little situational depression that happens in there, but it's how do I get out of it, and how do I get out of it faster without beating myself up for it having happened in the first place. I had no control over, my parents passing away.
Mm-hmm.
I have zero control over that. So while I'm allowed to be sad, I can't stay there for too long because I can't change it.
Well, it's kind of like the waves in the ocean, or
Yes.
like a touch and go, or expanding and contracting. It's like, I think, and with depression, it kind of comes hand in hand with anxiety. They kind of toggle back and forth, is my opinion.
Anxiety's huge.
we get depressed, and then we feel anxious that we are depressed. Like we shouldn't be feeling that way. But I love James Hillman. If you haven't read James Hillman, he took over Carl Jung's Institute, and I like his work. And he talks about how with depression to make it more descriptive. So do you feel like you want to be in your pajamas all day? Do you feel like eating mashed potatoes? Do you feel like a cloud's following you? Because we can get very fixated on our labels too. But I think that it is, it's just part of our situations that happen in our lives. Like you're saying, it might be, I like that, situationally depressed, right?
And just not, staying there for too long, right? It's just life. We're not getting out of here alive. And I think that we forget that, it's like
We get sucked in there, yeah.
we think, oh, well, it's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be this way. Why? And why is such a horrible question to ask because it has
No, it's
a
true.
multitude of answers, right?
Well, it just demonstrates how expansive it is, right? It's not stagnant.
Yeah. Nothing we're not trees. We're not stuck, right? We're
Right.
not lost. I come to UCSB and and I do get lost.
You
No
found
joke.
your way here before I did, I think.
I was pretty impressed with myself. I gave myself an hour to do it, though.
See, you did it.
So, but none of us are lost, sometimes we're finding our way in a different way. And I think that what happens in business and in life is like we get stuck and like, oh, it's got to be like this. Don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to try something. Try it for a year. If it doesn't feel good, look, how long do you leave your clothes that, like you're going to get back into that outfit from pre-pregnancy before your body has changed? How long do you give that outfit in your closet? You give it about a year, right? And then you're like, you try on the jeans and you're like, yeah, I just don't need these
I
anymore.
have a lot of my jeans. Been saving those.
Don't
I
be
know what you're
afraid to pivot. It's fine if it didn't work out in the plan according to you.
I think it is true. I like the way I look at it is more even just as an experiment. Try it as an experiment, even for a day or a week, just see what it's like. You can always go back.
My brother teases me a lot. He says, you've done so many things in your lifetime. You could do whatever you wanted. And
true.
He's like, I can go work at Home Depot because I've worked in the entertainment industry.
Right, you can do anything you want.
And it's true. But you know what? Anybody can. You know, if I decided that I wanted to go work on a cruise ship, not a cruise ship because I wouldn't want to be stuck on the ship, but if I decided that I wanted to go work on a fishing boat, I'd go work on a fishing boat because I'm not afraid to do it. I'm not afraid to try something. If, you know, a month in, I was like, yeah, not my door.
You can change your mind.
I'd change.
It's true. Well, I think there's a fear from that too. Like, kind of feels like there's like a brick wall sometimes, and we don't know. The unknown can be very scary. You know, like people don't. We can't see it, touch it, taste it, feel it. You know what I mean? And we don't know. But
you don't know till you try it.
But even knowing is, we really don't know. There's a great book called On Knowing What One Knows, and it's by Donald Marcus, and I like that title because he says as soon as we think we know, we don't really know. It's like a sign to keep going, you know, and keep learning and exploring.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, Nicole, why do you think reducing mental health stigma is so essential?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Why do you think reducing mental health stigma is essential for us?
Oh, reducing
If you do think that, yeah.
I absolutely think that. I think that we need to stop being so hard on ourselves. You know, that constant, like, you know, beating yourself up for mistakes or flaws or whatever, it doesn't bring anything. You know, all it does is increase your anxiety. And then what happens? You know, now you're up here, you're up in the ethers. And like you said, when you were talking about meditation, find your ground. You know, I have been known to pull over on the side of the road when I've been anxious and rub my hands in dirt.
Nice.
And as silly as that sounds.
No, I like that.
That's earth.
Actually, I've been telling people for like a decade to go get really good soap, whatever kind they like. And if they get stressed out or overwhelmed or scared, the bathroom is a good place. I know one of my mentors taught me. No one usually follows you in there. You can lock the door. Or I love your idea of pulling over on the side road with the dirt. It's very grounding. And, you know, to wash your hands and like really smell and take in a couple breaths. And they've found now they're coming out with studies actually on that. They're finding that we release some good dopamine, which people love, you know, the dopamine hit. But also it really is grounding and replenishing, I think, just to us, just to kind of regroup and recalibrate ourselves. So you pull over on the side of the road and you kind of take some dirt and then do you smell it or what do you do?
I rub it between my hands and I say ground. And if I'm still feel like I'm floating up towards, you know, the clouds, I'll take my shoes off and I'll scrub my feet in the dirt.
Nice.
Because your feet, that connection to the earth, you know, I mean, you got to be careful, like, where are you and where are you pulling over, right? But, you know, but by the same token, it's like, just remember, it's okay. Everything's okay. And I think that, you know, the whole stigma about, like, not being allowed to be anxious, you know, at work, it's okay. But don't make it's a horrible year. It's a bad minute.
Exactly.
It's a bad hour.
Take it minute by minute instead of like generalizing. It's true. Or we start comparing. That's a great point. And I love that you pull over with the dirt. But make sure if you do pull over with the dirt to look like Nicole said, where you're pulled over. Nicole, what do you think your work in like the business fields has taught you about the attitudes that people hold toward mental health? Do people it's kind of like, do people talk about mental health or?
They do now. I've seen a huge shift from like 12 years ago when I first moved to Santa Barbara and we opened that bakery. You know, it was like, shh, nobody talked about mental health. And now, like, you know, I'll see these like 20-year-old kids. I'm taking a mental health day. And
I love that.
And there's, you know, a moment where I kind of laugh about it and I'm like, good for you.
Yeah.
You take care of you because nobody knows you better than yourself.
That's true.
You know?
So you're kind of seeing like growth, or there's more people.
The younger generation is starting to say, hey, I'm not okay. I matter, and I need to take time for myself.
Yep.
I think that's wonderful. You know what?
I love that. Actually, I notice most people, not to generalize, but I do notice that people under like 30 or even 35, but 30 for sure, they really get kind of what is important. So that makes me really happy about people and how we care about each other and ourselves and, you know, like trying to figure out what's important in our lives. But then they have all the residue from the stuff that's been taught to us. So it's confusing. But I think keep it simple is another thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I like your dirt idea with Nicole was talking about if she gets stressed out, she's driving, she pulls over and rubs some dirt on her hands and says ground. And I like that idea because it's so simple and it's free and you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's great. How do you think our life changes accept or reject our mental health stigma or mental health too?
How do I think our
Yeah.
life changes?
When we have life changes, do you think that those changes that around us, because we usually have to encounter other people
Sure.
to deal with
Absolutely.
because we're not like in a capsule with our life changes. We usually bounce that off of other people. Do you think when people are having life changes, because you probably have experienced, right, that
I've
with
seen
people?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you've seen
I've
it.
seen it. I've had them myself,
Exactly. Do you think that people are accepting of that or rejecting of that? And then how does that impact like mental health stigma?
I think it's changed. I think more people now are way more accepting of other people's life changes, rather than looking at it like, I feel like it used to be a little bit more like, like the comparison thing, where now it's more like, oh, I see that you have gone through that. Hey, how did you get through that? And how did you come out on the other side?
They're curious.
Yeah.
Which is really
and
healthy.
more sharing with other people, right?
Right. So that would be, there wouldn't be any mental health stigma really, because then they're not, right? They're open, I guess is what you're saying.
I think that people are a lot more open to saying that, it's okay to talk to a professional, it's better than, I'd rather talk to you now when you're alive than, I don't want to go to somebody's funeral. I mean, no offense, but, I don't want them to, become so suicidal that they don't feel like they can talk to anybody.
Yep.
That makes me sad. So,
Are you talking about because some people don't change their life and then they feel suicidal?
yes.
That's true. Well, especially because you worked at some big businesses, there's probably a lot of cutthroat, right? Kind of hardcore.
There's cutthroat in
mentality.
every size business out there.
Yeah.
There's so many people who are like, stepping on somebody else to try, like crabs in a bucket, right? But you never really get anywhere. If you're the crab in the bucket and you're trying to claw your way to the top, you don't actually end up anywhere. It does not do you any good.
The main thing is to focus on what is healthy for yourself.
And focus on you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's true because you have to live with yourself. You have to listen to yourself. And I think that's where actually a lot of loneliness comes from, is people think, oh, I can get that from outside. And we do get that the other people give us, like me talking to you, I feel more connected to another person. However, ultimately, I'm going to leave and you're going to leave and I'm going to be alone and I'm going to have to listen to my own thoughts and feelings and body sensations. And I think if we can keep practicing throughout our lifetime how to be more loyal to ourselves.
You have to be okay with being alone before you can ever get into like a relation. If you want a relationship that's healthy, the last thing you should do is jump from one to another because you're afraid that you're going to be alone. You're never alone. If you feel like you're alone, stop, look in the mirror, look at yourself and say, hi, there you are.
There you are.
You are guaranteed only one person to get to the end of this life with. It's yourself. And yet a lot of times, like including myself, I put myself last so much of my life. And I made a commitment to myself that I was like, I am going to be okay with being alone. And then you become the other person where you're really okay with being alone and you don't want to deal with other people's drama because you know what, you bring, right?
I think, though, in relation, it is important to have relationships, but it can get very sticky and complicated. But that's why therapy is good. You can bounce ideas off of your therapist or you can talk to friends or, colleagues or... that's why support is really important.
I think therapy is good for everybody.
I do too. I think I look at it when I see people and they're like, oh, I don't know, my doctor referred me here and I don't know why I want to come, but I don't know, But I'm like, well, it's an investment in you. So it'll be a good thing it'll be healthy for you, that you can take care of yourself.
Yeah, and it's not a friend who's going to tell you what you want to hear.
Exactly. Well, it's someone who's not emotionally involved, even though I do care about everybody. I say I don't go home with, like I'm not going to go out to dinner, or with my patients or whatever. So it is different. But I do think we're in a really positive change time. I know we were talking before the show about that. And we're all under a lot of duress and stress. And there's a lot of change in our world, especially right now. But I also think that there is a lot of positive change. And I think there's more conversations in our society about mental health, and those have grown louder and more prevalent. I think workers still, are asking for more awareness to reach the office. There was a recent study from Mindshare Partners where they polled 1,500 American workers, which isn't that many, but it's some, about their mental health and how it can affect their work. And they found that after they asked them whether they had acceptable mental health resources or support at work, 60% have experienced symptoms related to mental health in the last 12 months. and about that same percentage, so 60, have never talked to anyone at work about their mental health. So that's why I'm doing this show too, is because I'm hoping, well, and I can tell you already are mental health oriented, but like, and if you're listening on the show, I always just think it's so healthy, as you listen and want to take care of your own mental health, to also think, okay, well, if I go back to my dorm, or I go back to my store I work at, or I go back to my office, or wherever I go, that I can spread that, right? And we can ripple out kind of that. Just it could be really simple, like we were talking at the beginning of the show. If someone has something going on, you could listen. Or just, say hi. And
Ripple effect. I love that.
What'd you say?
The ripple effect.
The ripple effect, exactly. Well, I think we can put we can throw a pebble in a pond and it can ripple out waves of destruction, or it can ripple out waves of peace.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping for. Little ripples of peace,
I think it just takes one, right? We get so focused on, it can change the whole group. Maybe, but what if you just help one person?
Exactly.
Like you want to exercise? Start with one sit up, as silly as that sounds.
That's true.
One glass of water, one.
And 1 second. Take it 1 second at a time, 1 minute at a time.
Whatever you need to do
one
to
person.
get through it,
Right. Well, there is kind of that mentality I know you're talking about, where we take on maybe too much, especially in America. I think we're that way, because I think in Europe and other places, they're more into taking naps and vacations. You know what I mean? It just seems like we're just, like the Dalai Lama, he says in America, like we work so hard to make money and to have our careers and to do our work. But then we spend that money taking care of ourselves because we get ourselves sick.
Exactly.
From working so hard. So I think it's really, really important. We have just like another 10 minutes or so. And if you're just jumping in now, we are here. This is the Dr. Deborah Show, and we're talking with Nicole Black. And Nicole is a motivational speaker and an entrepreneur, and she's also a small business trainer in employee productivity and effective growth. And she has been working for the past 20 years and helping some of the biggest brands in hospitality and entertainment. She's also had a lot of life changes, and she has the super yummy Renauds. I probably didn't say it right again. I don't think I said it right, but can you say it? Renaud's. I kind of did. But if you haven't had, they have super yummy French food, and she's just done a lot of different things. So I thought Nicole would be really great to come on and just talk about life change and business success. So that's kind of where we're at right now in the show. And I was wondering, how do you think, can you explain how life changes and business success, like as concepts, relate to mental health? Like, we were kind of just talking about that. Like, if we decide to make a life change, how does that relate to our mental? Because you were talking about suicide. If you have a job that you don't like, and that causes you to be suicidal. So maybe if you want to expand on the idea of like life change or business success and how mental health relates to those.
Mental health and life changes. I think that, life changes happen, right? Anything can happen. And again, I do really think that it's important how we react to things, not making it bigger than it is. Look, if your house blows up or a fire comes through, and I know it's hard for me to sit on that side because a fire has never destroyed my home, knock wood, but I'll tell you, what I've told people, is, well, maybe it's a chance to start over.
Right.
Everything is how you look at it. Everything can be reframed, every single thing. If you're a farmer and you have a terrible crop, hey, I get it. That's how you make your money. But perhaps you could train other farmers in how to farm. Maybe your benefit in life isn't just about the widget that you're creating, right? Maybe it's about showing other people how to create widgets. So I think that once you start to learn how to reframe everything and say, everything happens for me, not to me. Mm-hmm. It's all happening for us, Sometimes it feels like, everything is falling apart. We were talking about this before the show. Mm-hmm. That's actually the best time of your life is when, and it doesn't feel like it, right? Because your mental health is absolutely suffering, the stress and anxiety. But what if something really amazing comes out of this, the storm?
The turbulence.
Right?
And actually, I do think a lot of things do come out of that. Like in my life, I know when I've let go of things, so to speak, or I've allowed something to not be so concrete, that I think, it has to be that way. But then really it's not that way anyhow. And also, like you're saying, it shuts down opportunities. So I think what you're saying is, and I like that idea too, of like reframing So if you have something going on, reframing how you think about it. And then also being open, because sometimes it's kind of like, didn't they discover like chicken pox? Or I'm trying to think of one of the vaccines where it was just like an accident, actually. Like they were doing research and they were trying to discover vaccination. But I believe that it was it was actually, no, it was polio. With the polio vaccine, they was kind of like a fluke, I think, where they had an error and then actually resulted in something that like has saved so many people's lives.
I think, for me, what I try to do to keep my mental sanity is when something is happening, if you're standing in the center of the circle, you cannot see what's in the center of the circle. Take a step back and look at it objectively through another person's eyes, right? Through your own eyes, but as yourself as the observer rather than as the person that something is happening to. You really get a clearer picture of, not the end of the world, because really until it is the end of the world, nothing is the end of the world.
That's right.
But we blow things up and we make it this huge drama. It doesn't have to be dramatic,
It can be just what it is. Well, I like that idea. How do you think for our listeners, how would they pull back and be the outside observer?
It's actually way harder, I think, because, when you're stuck and you're in the moment, you're heated. Stuck. You really have to just kind of take control of who has control over you? You. That's it.
To some degree. Well, I guess probably, I like your idea with the dirt, because Nicole was saying when she gets stuck, she pulls over on the side of the road and sometimes rubs dirt in her hand. But sometimes, switching our environment, I guess, would be one way.
Walk out of the room. If you're having a fight with somebody, you can't fight with somebody if they're in the other room.
Which is really hard for people to do. To pull back from those predicaments. But yeah, that is a good suggestion.
Disconnecting is not a bad thing. If your phone is fully charged, what do? You unplug it. You disconnect it from the power source.
Right.
You have to, and you don't even think twice about it. Right?
I think I do think it's healthy to be conscious, though. I'm going to step back out of this predicament once you actually get yourself out of it, and then, okay, I can step back and...
Well, you're consciously stepping out of the center of the circle.
Right.
But it's hard to do. Listen, when things feel like they're falling apart, I also think it's absolutely A-okay to have a meltdown and cry it out for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a day, however long it takes you to piece it together in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
But then... after you've had a good cry, or, however you deal with stress, I cry.
Crying is very healthy, actually.
Step back. If it was your friend, if it was your best friend, what would you tell them to do? Because you're your own best friend, right? So now you've stepped out of the circle and you disconnect for a moment, but feel through it. I'm not saying don't feel the feelings.
No, I like that idea, too, because I think sometimes we, give so much to our people that are around us, but then we don't give it back to ourselves, right? So that's really important to do, to give to ourselves, too. So I was wondering, we just have a couple minutes, goes by so fast. Nicole, if there's someone listening who's interested in life changes or business success and how to approach their profession from a healthy perspective, do you have, for somebody who's new, say there's a college student or someone in that age range listening, do you have any recommendations from all your years of experience? Of just how to enter into whatever if they're interested in having a business or they're interested in changing what they're doing in their life, what would be the first step that they could take? And I know we've covered a lot of them along the way, but I was just thinking if we kind of gathered it together and
I think the number one thing that people have to realize when they're starting something new is everything's a little bit like a game of chess. I don't actually know how to play chess, but I know that everything is 5 moves ahead. And so if you really step back and you have this brainstorm idea, sit down, write it out. It's kind of like writing out a story arc, right?
Right.
Beginning, middle, end. And get your game plan that way.
And also it doesn't have to look perfect or anything. You can jog it down on a piece of paper and scribble it out.
And then if you don't like it, you can throw it away and start over. But don't be afraid to start over and don't be afraid to make a lot of mistakes. All of the best lessons that I've learned have been from my mistakes.
It's true. There's a great book for that. Carol Dweck's book called Mindset. She talks about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And a lot of the schools are teaching that now, which is the old idea is with the fixed mindset would be if we fail at something, we'll never succeed at that. But maybe actually with the growth mindset, we can, like you're saying, we can learn from our failures. So I think that's really key.
And if you fall down, just get back up again. Just
Yeah.
keep getting up.
Just keep working at it. I mean, it's really part of the journey. And I think some other tips would be like not to rush your transition. Just, give yourself some time to adjust and settle down, expecting a reaction because, your emotions are going to get stirred up. And, if you need to cry or laugh or feel moody or whatever your change involves, grieving, nostalgia. Some other tips are like not to take it personally because I think change does happen like we were talking about earlier, right? You had some great suggestions. I loved them all. And that is life. And sometimes it really has nothing to do with you and most of the time. So try not to obsess over who's to blame or why it happened. Another idea is to go with the flow, which I know is very, very hard, but like the idea of like not resisting or being too rigid. So try to working toward being flexible, kind of the idea of writing out the storm and just seeing how things turn out. Also, don't go it alone. So, talk to your family and your close friends and share your problems with people you trust because others might offer a different angle to your situation. Not focusing on the negative. You might miss something that might be really positive too. And for every negative, there's a positive. Also breaking things up. So if you feel like it's a really large problem that seems insurmountable, maybe dividing it up and working, like you're saying, like on a long-term kind of idea. And also learning from it because with new experiences, we grow wiser and stronger, and wisdom helps us make better decisions in the future. And then, of course, balancing our life, which is such a big one, to take time to just, let yourself be through the rough times and know that it will end, no matter how big or difficult. Change comes to an end when new circumstances are in place and they become more familiar, and normality, so to speak, will return, and just keep that in mind. So those are my little tidbits of ideas of how we can also do that. And I just want to thank you, Nicole, for coming on the show. And do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners? Because I know I asked you a lot of questions, but maybe you have some other idea or things that you were thinking about.
I'd say, remember one of my dad's parting words to me before he passed away was, remember to have fun. And I think it's really important, I get when Shakespeare said, to thine own self be true. He didn't mean while stepping on other people and hurting them.
Right.
We have to have fun along the way, laugh. Learn to laugh at the small things, because you're going to look back eventually and be like thinking about things and realize that those little things that made you laugh, those were the big important things. Connecting with other people, walking down the street, look at people, say hello, put your phones down, but remember, have fun.
It's true. Yeah, I think having fun is really important. Well, and it counterbalances all the stress that we all feel,
Yeah.
So those are great suggestions. And hopefully you'll get to try one of Nicole's almond croissants, because I'm probably not saying, is it croissant? It's croissant.
Well, I'm not French. I'm American, but I think it's croissant.
Croissant. I remember when I went to France, though, those are very good. So, but I just really respect and appreciate your opinion. So thank you for coming in and sharing your wisdom. And I think some ways that we can work together and help create a supportive environment that can empower and care for the individual, or like working together by volunteering, checking in with ourselves, learning about other cultures, and make sure if you're getting information that it's from an accurate source, like not a random scientific study. And I think that leads to understanding, including, and caring. And I'm always trying to imagine a world where we can share our feelings and thoughts more freely, and also where we can move toward health for all human beings. And I think if we each do our part toward ending negative perceptions about mental health, and we raise awareness, that we can all live in a more loving, safe, and accepting world. I want to thank my special guest again, Nicole, for coming in today and sharing her wisdom. If you have any questions, feel free to write me on my Facebook page. It's the Dr. Deborah Show. And if you have a question for Nicole, I could pass that along, or you could find her as well, Nicole Black. I just wanted to give a shout out really quickly to HopeNet of Carpinteria. I'm on the board of HopeNet, and they're a group of concerned citizens who provide education and resources to prevent suicide. So our mission is to improve the mental wellness of our residents and our community through information, support, training, and advocacy. So we're hoping to create a stronger safety net. And if you or someone you know does need help locally, Santa Barbara Access is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their phone number is 1-888-868 1649. And we're live at KCSB FM Santa Barbara 91.9. We'll look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks for listening.